Am I live? Donovan? Am I live? Okay, thanks. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to, it's my pleasure to welcome all of you to the 2021 CHPC National Conference. On behalf of the organizing committee, it's really very good for us to be at this point in the year again, where we can host a program which we think is very interesting. This is the second virtual CHPC conference. Of course, we started last year, but it is the 15th annual conference already. So this conference has come a long way already, 15. So I think most of us are already quite used to the quality and the content that you will be exposed to. So we are really looking forward to your participation. And the theme is very much focused on cloud technologies for cyber infrastructure service provisioning for this year. So you will see talks dedicated to this, naming of our own cloud infrastructure, etc. I would like to acknowledge the 5 conference sponsors. As always, we're getting excellent support from our sponsors, and this is what makes this event possible. The diamond sponsor this year, Intel, thank you very much. We have 3 gold sponsors, NVIDIA, HPE, and Dell Technologies, and the silver sponsor, Altair. Just some notes to the delegates. All of you would have access already on the virtual hosting platform. I trust you will agree that it is a user-friendly space where you can navigate easily to where you need to go, but there is a support function there if you need any assistance. Just note that on the full program, you can access the sessions and the titles of the talks and link to the abstract of the talk, so you can have all the information there. So please browse the program. And we encourage the audience to please participate. There's a chat messaging function for all sessions. Please leave your questions and comments there. We would very much like to read it. And please ask questions during the talks. The program format of the conference is, of course, over 3 days and divided between keynotes and parallel tracks. So a number of parallel tracks from HPC applications, HPC technologies, NICIS cloud projects, the SA NREN track, the RESA track, cybersecurity symposium, a SADC track. There's also a vendor crossfire session as the last session for today. So you will see it's a full program, and I trust everybody will find the talks and sessions that's of interest to you. And there's also a micro talks program, which is pre-recorded videos, both for students and professionals. So please visit the micro talks page where you can watch those videos at any time. And of course, the student micro talks is a competition where the winners will be announced in different categories at the awards function. I can just indicate to all that the number of registrations for this year is looking very good. I've just checked before the conference started. We are around 530 registered delegates, so we are very pleased about the interest being shown. So I trust all of you will have an enjoyable conference, and with this, we're going to start with the program of the opening session. Can I just check? I don't see Professor Seleti on the call. Donovan, is that correct? He's not yet joined. So you will see on the program that we've got Professor Seleti from DSI that will be doing a welcoming address from the DSI. We're just going to hang on with his talk for a moment, and I'm going to move to the second speaker of the morning that's also going to welcome all of you from a NICIS perspective, and this is Dr. Happy Sithole. Happy is, of course, the center manager for the South African Cyber Infrastructure System, NICIS, since 2019 already. And before that, he, of course, was the director of the CHPC for more than a decade. So thank you, Happy, for your welcoming message. And with that, I'm going to for now hand over to you. Thank you, Happy.
Okay, thank you, Werner. Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, everyone who's joined us online. We are still waiting for our representative from the Department of Science and Innovation, Professor Seleti, to join us. So he will officially welcome you to this conference. And I would like to welcome you to the National Integrated Cyber Infrastructure. in short, NICIS. As Werner has indicated, I am the center manager for NICIS. And under NICIS, we have got the South African National Research Network, which is SANREN. We have got the Center for High Performance Computing, CHPC, and we have got the Data Intensive Research Initiative of South Africa, DIRISA. The three entities are co-hosting this conference. So as Werner has already indicated, this is the 15th in the series of the conferences that we held. The past 12 out of that series were mainly focusing on high performance computing. But since then, we have fused in high performance computing network and data intensive research. And we are really proud to see the participation in this conference growing. And I would really like to thank the sponsors for this conference that have already been indicated. Most of the sponsors have been with us every year of this conference. So we really thank them for their support and making sure that this conference takes place. In this year, we have also now have a full steering committee, the conference steering committee. And our steering committee have just started few months just before this conference. And already they have got views and also ways that they see growing this conference. So through the support of the steering committee, we think that this conference will keep on growing. And we are looking forward for the new initiatives that the steering committee will be bringing. The program committee also played a very important role. You can see through the program how it was meticulously being organized. That is the work that the program committee has put in this conference. Of course, our organizing committee takes most of the time to be able to make sure everything works. When I was talking to the committee yesterday, you could hear that they don't have time to pick up any phone. So Werner and the team, in getting everything to be started, we started exactly at 10:30, and the speakers already being here. That's a great work from the committee. I would like to also thank all the speakers. Without you, there is no conference. So all the speakers who have already prepared their talks, I have read most of the abstracts of these talks, and I'm really looking forward to listening to your talks. And I would like to invite everybody to really attend as many as possible. I know we won't be able to attend all, but make sure that at least you cover most of the talks. And the students who participate in this conference, as students, the researchers who will be participating through the poster sessions, and also the students who are in the competitions. We are hosting three competitions: the Student Cluster Challenge, the Datathon, and also the Cybersecurity Challenge. We wish you well. Just being in this conference, you are the winners. And I know I have seen the challenges that you have to go through. These are very interesting challenges that you have put in front of you. And we are looking forward for these innovations. I'd just like to get into a little bit on the theme of the conference and what motivated this. We had discussions with the conference steering committee about what should inspire this conference. And I take that you will really agree with me that over time, we have been talking about cloud, for an example, in high performance computing. And in about 5 years ago, we were talking about 40% of HPC load will be ready to move into the cloud. So Bill Magro, then from Intel, giving us these projections. And it looked like it was going to be a tough toll to get high performance computing loads on the cloud at that time. Of course, there were a number of challenges. First, whether you will be able to have architectures that will be able to run HPC workloads. And in that time, one of the things that was closely looked at is for the systems that really depend on closely coupled systems would not be able to run effectively on the cloud. And over time, the technology has improved to an extent that we can see most of the workloads being able to go into the cloud. So there has been a concerted effort to make sure that we can really be able to get high performance computing on the cloud. So a number of things obviously that goes in there. It's things like getting proper interconnects so that we can have the first interconnects that are native in high performance computing to be native on cloud. And these are some of the things. The other things that, of course, are the challenge that most of the speakers will be talking about here. We will see the issue about the data movements, which are some of the things that one has to take into consideration before you're looking into moving into the cloud. So with all those, with the technologies and on how we provision our workloads, these are some of the challenges that we still have to go through. But what really inspired this is that in the past year, when we started seeing the global pandemic on health, COVID-19, a number of ways that we are working in has changed. Hence, you see the second part of our theme, cloud in unprecedented times, challenges and opportunities. I think when this came, and some of the speakers will highlight this, for an example, in our case in South Africa, that when we provisioned our cloud, immediately we went into the national lockdown. And during that time, processing capability was required. And a number of speakers are going to talk about those. So it was the challenges that the cloud immediately stepped in and started to be able to provide the necessary processing capability and also the data that was required. So it is through all these challenges that we see of technological challenges and also the requirements from the use cases that we look at this as there are these challenges that we have to solve, but there are also these opportunities that we can be able to assist. And I am looking forward for most of the speakers from around the world who will talk about their experiences in how this happened in their countries. Of course, in South Africa, we will be sharing about the challenges that we faced, but also I am looking forward from, especially from the OEMs, from the technologies that are being developed, on how we are preparing to be able to have the relevant technologies as we move. But not just looking at the OEMs, I think also from the research community, what is it that we are doing to put together the relevant tools and technologies to address this. So this is a theme that we believe that it should be able to sort of bring ideas to the table that we can be able to use as we charter the way now into how do we bring in this new provisioning of infrastructure. Of course, we will hear a lot about having to make business decisions, whether things are on-prem or off-prem. So these are some of the things that I'm looking forward to hearing about this thing. In planning for the future in South Africa, you will hear also a lot on what South Africa is doing. At the moment, mainly coming from our funder, which is the Department of Science and Innovation. We're moving into a new decade. We had a 10-year innovation plan, which has just been concluded. And we have got now a white paper on science and technology and innovation. And with that, we are planning on what are the tasks that we should look at in the next decade. And you will see that in this planning, a lot is talked about in terms of infrastructure. A lot is talked about in solving global challenges. So if we are looking at solving these global challenges and we have to provide infrastructure, it has to be infrastructure that can be used. And some of the things that we are talking about in this theme of the conference will be relevant in there. So Program Director, I want to share quickly let me just share the slides. Can you confirm if you can be able to see my slide?
We can see it happen.
Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, in the slides, basically is just to try and take you through what we are planning as the National Integrated Cyber Infrastructure. And we had discussion on looking at the existence of NICIS up to this stage. And we looked at what should be our strategic objectives. And we have come to realize that the objectives that we set about 2 years ago are still relevant, because we think that as first years, our first strategic objective is to sustain world-class infrastructure, cyber infrastructure for science, technology, and innovation. So this will be very key. And our next strategic objective, of course, being to support, enable, and promote e-science, the use of science and engineering of this infrastructure. And our third objective is to look at positioning South Africa to take part in global large-scale science projects. Of course, we have such science projects that you know, like the Square Kilometer Array, the CERN, but there are many, including now the COVID-19 pandemic, which is a global challenge, and South Africa also looking at that in working in getting solutions in combating COVID-19. The other thing that we're looking at is to always, because cyber infrastructure is evolving, looking at the strategies and support and give thought leadership in them. But very key, of course, in this is that we want sustainability, and you will see through to this conference also that we have got a number of programs in human capital development. I have already highlighted 3, which is the student challenges, and that is what we are putting emphasis on, making sure that we have got the relevant human capital in the country. Just to give you a synopsis on this, it's just an update and a progress in these objectives. And just looking in the first objectives in terms of infrastructure, we have seen that the infrastructure being provided, we have got sufficient and satisfactory utilization of this. which is close to 100% on the HPC systems. And sometimes when we have got load shedding because of how the system have been configured, we go to 50%. So this shows that at all the time, available capacity is being utilized significantly by the researchers and the users of National Integrated Cyber Infrastructure. We have got the national backbone that we have announced 2 years ago, 100 gigabits around the country. This is overall the national backbone. It's operational now, and we have been working very hard in making sure that some of the institutions that have got links that have expired, we conclude in that, and we are meshing to make sure that we have got a comprehensive network across the country. These projects are going on very well. And our other strategy in terms of the infrastructure is the hierarchical storage management, where we will be able to get cradle to cradle support of your data requirements. And for an example, in this case, moving your data from the computing infrastructure to be able to get into staging area. This hierarchical storage management is one of our key infrastructure programs, and we're looking at finalizing the archiving solution. And these are projects that should be finalized in few months. But I think overall out of this, as I indicated, we can put this infrastructure, if it is not properly utilized, then we have got a problem. So that's one of the things that we have put a lot of thinking around in NICIS. And this is to have a comprehensive user support. And our user support in this case, approach from an integrated services teams. And already we see the benefits of organizing these teams. These teams basically looking at the user support from the point of the computing, getting in even from your security of how you are doing the processing, how you transport your data. And we have got engineers looking at all these problems and talking about whatever service that they are providing to you, looking at it from that integrated services teams. And for an example, one of our integrated services team is the OpenStack services team. So this is looking at overall provisioning of OpenStack and developing the tools. And they're looking at it from the point of the network and your storage, and also how do we provision the computing resources. The colleagues will be talking more about this initiative in our program. And lastly, one of the things that we're seeing is that the NICIS being at the core of advancing the digitalization, digital transformation. And this has been very evident during the COVID-19 pandemic. And a number of talks you will see where they are talking about how cyber infrastructure supported. For an example, when we are looking at finding the solutions from the bioinformatics point of view, from chemistry point of view, looking at chemicals and various solutions, and also from the data analytics point of view, you will see that providing proper data support in the country was very key, and NICIS provided that. So NICIS remains very pivotal in the provision of the solutions. And true to the theme of this conference, the NICIS OpenStack, as I said, is now available. And this is a unified cloud combining all the three areas of NICIS. We have got a multi-zone cloud infrastructure in Cape Town, finalizing part of that in Pretoria. And this is mainly targeted to research and government users. So NICIS provide all those services that you see, migrating your workloads and also giving you support. But there is also already work that is being done for the future, like for an example, single sign-on and tightly coupling this with the NICIS HPC systems and storage. But where we are looking at is to bring in also other forms of the computing in there, like your GPUs, which are not in the cloud at the moment, but also working on bare metals and to be able to get the fast HPC interconnect in there. And lastly, also looking at the disaster recovery. I have put in there the link, and this presentation will be available. You can also be able to follow up this link and see how to get into the NICIS cloud. Lastly, we would like your participation. And in this case, we have got this cloud. And as our tradition in NICIS, we name our systems and we name them according to some of sentimental either icons in the country, or we want something that this cloud can be associated with South Africa. If I give you our HPC systems, we name them according to our fastest animal. Our current HPC system is Lengau. Lengau being cheetah and one of the fastest agile animal, and that was the reason behind the name. So now we have got the cloud, and we are inviting you to participate in this, have an opportunity to be part of that process of naming this. And with that, we would like you to follow through this and suggest a name for the cloud. Give us the story or the rationale behind the name. Provide your name and then your contacts, of course, so that we can be able to contact you, because there will be a prize for the person whose name the judges will like and how the name came about. Of course, in this naming, there will be terms and conditions that apply. For an example, after naming it, don't come and try and take the name again. So you will see that there will be those terms and conditions, look at them. But to get there, you simply have to go to the lobby and get to the competition page to complete that part. I've also put in the link so that you can be able to follow through that. So with those words, ladies and gentlemen, I would really welcome you to the program of the NICIS Cyber Infrastructure Conference, and take that you will have full participation to the conference and really enjoy this conference. What I can just say is that we are really looking forward for us contributing to making sure that this conference does not have to be held for the third time as an online event. We would like to have this event as an on-site event. And we're looking forward to making sure that we can make the world much better. And we know that the community that is here will help in getting therapeutic solutions. But as individuals, we have got our own responsibility to make sure that we contribute to making sure that the world is open again. And on those words, I welcome you, enjoy the conference, and I would like to hand back to our program director, Werner. Thank you very much, Werner.
Thank you very much, Happy, for that opening address. I think you gave a very good overview of where we are going and also the immediate focus in the conference. So thank you very much for this. We will now move to the next speaker, which is Professor Yonah Seleti from DSI. Welcome, Professor Seleti. I know you had a bit of a trouble to get connected, but I can see you are online now. So thank you very much for joining. Maybe just a few words as background. Professor Seleti is the Acting Deputy Director General for Research and Development Support at DSI. He exercises oversight in 4 chief directorates, namely Astronomy, Basic Sciences and Infrastructure, Human Capital and Science Promotion, and Indigenous Knowledge Systems. So his seminar contribution to the department were basically 2 things: Protection, Promotion, Development, Management of Indigenous Knowledge Acts of 2019, and also with the outbreak of the coronavirus pandemic, he played a central role in the establishment of the National Policy Data Observatory, the NPDO, and you will hear more of this in the conference. Professor Seleti, thank you very much for joining us and addressing us on behalf of DSI. So with that, over to you, Professor Seleti. You should just unmute yourself, then you will be able to talk. Donovan, maybe just can you check on unmuting, Professor Seleti? I think it is unmuted now. There, the sound is on now. We can hear you. Professor Seleti, are you? No, it seems that the sound is still not on. Professor Seleti, I think the sound problem might be on your side. Yeah, so I think seeing that we do have this sound problem, we might have to postpone the talk just a little bit again. Okay. Let's follow up with him again. So let's maybe move on to the next talk first. Professor Seleti, we will come back to your talk once we have sorted that that sound problem. So I'm going to ask Dr. Jeffrey Baloyi to address us now. Dr. Jeffrey Baloyi is an impact area manager for operational intelligence within the NGEI cluster at the CSIR. And he will talk to us about the modeling and simulation decadal plan of the DSI. So Jeffrey, with that, over to you. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Program Director. Let me just share my screen. Let me see if I can show it. Can you see it?
Yes, it is visible.
Okay. Now, again, thank you, Program Director, for a warm welcome. And actually, what I'm presenting is not. I don't think I'm in a position to really present the Decadal Plan for the Department of Science and Innovation, but we have been working with the department to especially contribute towards what they call 6 ICT foundational domain, digital domains, one of which is modeling and simulation. So what I've termed it is a roadmap. So basically it sort of reflects the thinking behind this as the Department of Science and Innovation is finalizing its Decadal Plan, which will be effected from next financial year. So this will just be sharing the thinking that we've had with them, and also I'll share a bit later about tomorrow's session where we're at the Birds of a Feather session, where we sort of give everybody sort of a view of the contribution that we've had with the DSI on developing this particular domain. So As you said, I'm from the CSIR, and DSI approached us to really work with them in really putting this together. The main driver, essentially, from our perspective, when we interact with the DSI, of why they are putting together this Decadal Plan, is to really have a transformational impact on our society, especially looking from the perspective of taking advantage of the technological advances that we are having around the world and the ones that are being implemented in our country. So if you look at this concept of Society 5.0, essentially moving from what we call Society 4.0, where the big focus was on economies of scales, uniformity in terms of the society. You were expected to be behave in a certain way, do things in a particular way. The concentrations, if you will, in terms of who has what in terms of resources in our societies, in our economies, and also the vulnerabilities that were engendered in our societies due to some of these happenings or occurrences, and also the high impact, the environmental impact that we had with some of our economic activities like your mining, the fishing in our oceans and the waters, and the using of the waters that were to the point where not everybody has access to the resources that we have. Then when you transition to Society 5.0, you want to really resolve those issues that came from the advances, economic advances that we had in different countries, different regions of the world, where you're able to move, instead of focusing on economies of scales, where you can really be able to solve and be able to create value in society as a whole, where anybody can really share in that value. And also, instead of everybody being forced to conform to some uniform standard of how one has to be, then we sort of celebrate and really take advantage. And I'm sure everybody's aware of this diversity. We have the plurality of that we have in our societies, where everybody is really free to really exercise their individuality, if you will. And then moving away from concentrations of resources in particular spaces and areas, even powers, where we decentralize that capability. And I think NICIS really plays a role in assisting, giving this access to these resources to everybody in our country. And then really removing, liberating the society from anxieties, where society is really resilient to all forms of challenges in terms of security, be it health security, as right now, as we all know, we are going through a pandemic. Can we really utilize these technological advances to really assist us to really become more resilient as a society? And also security-wise, can we use technologies to really become, we know that everybody can be safe wherever they are in the country. And obviously sustainability and environmental harmony, where we really utilize our environmental resources sustainably, both economically and also for the really sustainable use of our environments, be it built or natural environments of our country and beyond our country. So the question is that how do you bring to bear these technological advances? Hence, these foundational digital domains that I mentioned, modeling and simulation being one of the 6. But the talk of digital domains focuses on the fact that the DSI doesn't want to necessarily focus on the applications when you talk about this context of these technologies that we're talking about. But we develop foundational domains or digital capabilities that you can start developing these applications that are targeted at particular sectors of the economy, particular industries. So if you're talking about health, where the health sector can really develop applications that are needed for their sector, but drawing on the capabilities that will be developed using these foundational domains. The same if you look at security, or if you look at the education, or if you look at energy, or any sector of the economy and society that can really utilize these foundational digital domains, and capabilities that will have been developed from there. So that's the idea. That's the idea of these foundational domains, and the idea is that then we have to come up with the strategic interventions that you need to put in place to really deliver these capabilities and tools and systems that we will use to really develop any of the application tools that that can be derived from this, and really be targeted at the needs of society, be it economic, social, or any other needs that has been identified. So, as I said, these 6 of these digital domains, one of them, the one I'm going to be talking about, is modeling and simulation, but the other ones that the DSI has identified is the artificial intelligence, robotics, cybernetics, and then you have Internet of Things, cloud computing, and networking. And then you have augmented and virtual and mixed reality, DLT, which is digital ledger technology and cybersecurity. And then there's quantum computing. But the one I'm going to be focusing on today is modeling and simulation, simply because modeling and simulation really utilizes the capabilities of the CHPC infrastructure that we have, the NICIS infrastructure that we have. And we can't really push this domain any further without really NICIS being the core, being at the center of this domain. So the areas, focus areas that the DSI has identified and really need to put forward. One thing that I'm sure everybody is aware of, that you have so many domains or sub-domains of modeling and simulation focusing on different sectors. But we want to look at it from a sector agnostic perspective, where whatever gets developed can really be applied in any subdomain of modeling and simulation, but it also brings together all these subdomains, because as we have seen, the societal problems, societal issues that we have are really complex. They need all the different modeling and simulation capabilities that we have to be brought to bear, to be combined to really solve societal issues or economic issues that we might have as a country. It's no longer just one sector that you need to focus on. You need to really bring everything together. So the first focus area was conceptual modeling. So essentially, we asked, how can models expressed by different experts in different modeling languages be combined in a consistent fashion? So essentially, whatever sector you are in, can you really still be able to understand a different sector that's not really your domain, and actually the two can talk to each other? So when you look at the level of formalities, that it's suitable for efficient and effective communication between the different subsectors. What characteristics should a modeling environment have to support conceptual modeling in an organizational context? So something like a distributed cognitive system, can something like this really assist to address this challenge? And what transformations of conceptual models to other representations are possible and useful? What are the major impediments to realizing such transformations? And then the second focus area is the fidelity of models that get developed, and how do you quantify uncertainty? So here the questions DSI was asking was, what is the most appropriate approach to representing and reasoning about uncertainty in complex systems consistently? So essentially the big issue here is consistency, such that you know that whatever you're measuring, you can measure the uncertainty of it, and you know that you can trust whatever results you are getting from your particular model, from your simulation. So another one is, what is the best approach to characterizing the uncertainty associated with a simulation model in order to enable and facilitate reuse? So yeah, we are aware that when you develop these models, sometimes if it's not done properly, they can be reused in different contexts. So, but they want to really make things such that are so robust, so the fatalities is at high level, such that we can really use it for other problems that we might face in the future. How should one aggregate knowledge, expertise, and beliefs of multiple experts across different domains? What is the best approach to take advantage of large and diverse data sets for characterizing uncertainty and for improving models accuracy? So I'm just reading some of these questions. As you can see, that they are not really focused on particular subdomains of modeling and simulation. They are applicable and relevant for any context, but also if you look at combining the different subdomains to really solve societal problems, you're gonna really have to answer these questions. And then if I can move ahead, looking at time, the third focus area was on the reuse, the composition, and adaptation of models that have been developed. So how can a model user be confident that a planned reuse of the model is within the range of uses intended by the model creator? How can one characterize the uncertainty of a model that is reused, possibly within some adaptation to a new context, as I was mentioning a bit earlier? So how can one characterize the uncertainty of simulation models obtained through composition of multiple models? I know some of these questions have been answered in some subdomains of modeling simulation, but then you need to go beyond that, where you can look at multiple sectors, multiple domains. If you combine it, all of a sudden some of these questions arise again, and you need to be able to solve those questions. And then the last one is, how can you accelerate the process of adapting and reusing models for different purposes? So these are the questions that the DSI really posed to us, and this is what at the core of really advancing modeling and simulation capabilities for South Africa. We really need to solve and answer these questions, and we really have to build this capability for the country. So as an example of where you can really face some of these questions that you need to answer, I use an example of system dynamics, where you look at different, if you look at maybe at the country level or a region level, where you look at the demographic, the impacts like demographic has on the economy, on land use, on the water use, air, the environment, food and agriculture. Plus, we have other, like what you call system drivers, where in this case, we look at the EU, where it's more a political driven process, which by now we all know that can actually play a role in assisting in formulating those policies, even though initially they might seem like they are political, but science and technologies can come into place to really assist in putting those together. Immigration, as you can see now, Europe is facing immigration coming from the Middle East, South Africa, our neighboring countries, immigration, even the whole of the African country, there's people moving around, and what impact does that have? Can you model that? Can you really simulate it and see the impact of it down the line? Do you have that capability? We need to have that capability. Right now, we're going through a pandemic. As you saw, that it really affected us economically through the political decisions that were taken. But could we have modeled and simulated that impact before the decisions were made, and gave an informed opinion that our political leaders could have used to really mitigate some of the impact that we had as a country? And it goes for beyond just our country, but for the whole world. You can see where this can really play a role in terms of modeling and simulation to our everyday life. And as we've seen, that if you don't have that capability, the damage and the impact that it has on our daily lives can be huge, can be catastrophic in some cases, especially when you look at the health, if you're not prepared to really handle that situation. So I will dive more and talk more on this, as I said, in the base of a further session tomorrow, where we will go through the background as I've given here, but to expand more on it, and the objectives of the modeling and simulation digital domain, and then also the proposed business plan that we're putting together with the DSI. We'll just go through and see what we're going to be covering for the next 10 years, and obviously we're going to open the floor for discussions. Every participant and player in this space, we know for different domains of experts all over the place, we really need the inputs that you can really give in this regard. What we're going to be proposing, what we're putting together, is not exhaustive. It doesn't really cover everything, but with your inputs, we'll definitely be able to really infuse some extra expertise, and then we really can be broad, such that by whatever gets developed 10 years down the line, it's really robust, can really put our country in a good position. And then from there, we'll also discuss the way forward of how this will be handled between ourselves, obviously with DSI, and how it will be implemented going forward. Okay, I think that's the end for me, Program Director. Thank you for the time to really present on this. And I look forward to interacting with the participants in tomorrow's Best of a Feather session.
Thank you very much, Jeffrey, for that overview. And yes, people are welcome to join the BOF session tomorrow, where the details will be further discussed and people can be giving their inputs. Thank you very much, Jeffrey. We will move to the next speaker now. We are a bit tight on time, but Professor Seleti, I believe that we can get audio from you at the moment. Is that correct? Can you maybe just indicate? Professor Seleti, are you there?
Speaking through Happy's phone.
Okay, I can hear you clearly. So Professor Seleti, welcome. I already introduced you, but just to remind people, of course, you are the acting Deputy Director General for Research, Development and Support at the DSI. So we are very pleased for people, for you to represent DSI in our conference. So over to you, and thank you for your welcome address.
Good morning to all. I'm sorry about the inconveniences caused, but let me get on with the task. First of all, I wish to extend my recognition to Dr. Marek Michalewicz of the University of Warsaw, Mr. Stephen Ozoibo of ARM, Dr. Kate Kai of Argonne National Laboratory, Dr. Jabu Musweni of the Council of the Scientific and Industrial Research, Mr. Ashwell Jenica of Statistics South Africa, Ms. Camille Walsh of the Australian Research Data Commons, Dr. Thomas Sterling of the Indiana University, and Dr. Jean-Laurent Philippe of Intertel, and invited guests from various countries. Let me also thank my fellow panelists, Dr. Baloyi and Dr. Happy, for taking the opportunity to go before me. I have turned my camera on from my side.
Great, Professor Seleti, you can continue. We will see whether we can resolve it. You can continue.
Yeah. All right, I think let's continue. And ladies and gentlemen, and also a special recognition for the students participating in the competitions and micro tasks. On behalf of the Director General of the Department of Science and Innovation, Dr. Phil Mujoha, I'm grateful for the opportunity to deliver this opening address to the 15th Center for Higher Performance Computing National Conference. A warm welcome to all participants in the conference. This year, we are once again meeting virtually due to the impact of the global COVID-19 pandemic. In spite of this, I'm confident that we will be able to circumvent this new reality through, among others, your contributions and the use of the cyber infrastructure. It pleases us to note that the annual conference of the Center for High Performance Computing continues to grow and remains an important forum for African researchers and industries to share advances in development of high performance computing in the continent. It is also encouraging to see that the conference encompasses the overall development in cyber infrastructure. This is in line with the Department of Science and Innovation's goal to consolidate these entities in order to effectively address the grand challenges and be able to host and lead large science projects in the country. As you know, the theme for this year's national conference is Cloud Technologies for Cyber Infrastructure, Service Provisioning, New Opportunities in Unprecedented Time. This theme recognizes how, as more and more work moved online in response to the pandemic, cloud technologies from computing to storage became essential to support solutions to these unprecedented challenges. It is cloud's flexibility that is key to how it helped epidemic forecasting, data collection, remote work, and many other new applications needed. the technologies such as OpenStack platforms that ensure that high-performance computing workloads can be able to be deployed on cloud form significant part of this significant part of this conference. As you might be aware, our National Integrated Cyber Infrastructure System, NICIS, promotes scientific and industrial development through the provision of high-performance computing capability, high-speed network capacity, and the national research data infrastructure, all of which is integrated radically into global connected systems and into local systems, providing seamless access for research and educational opportunities of South Africans. Over the years, our NICIS has made tremendous progress. Let me take this moment to share a few examples with you. Some of our NICIS milestones include the following. Our NICIS infrastructure and services have been utilized by users, which includes supporting research for COVID-19 projects. In particular, the HPC system realized a sustainable utilization of close to 100%, which clearly demonstrates the urgent need for additional capacity. The network infrastructure is being consolidated to have a robust network across the country, and some of the links are being renewed. And in support of the COVID-19 initiatives in the country. The latest need for these facilities being in the digital electronic vaccination certificate system from the National Department of Health. NICIS is participating in the efforts of the Global Open Science Cloud, an initiative to link global research data repositories and processing centers into a federated single cloud. NICIS is actively contributing to this initiative and is amongst 3 of the co-chairs of the working group. NICIS is also leading the application to host the International Data Week in 2025. This activity is supported by the Department of Science and Innovation, and a broad stakeholder meeting is arranged support from local and African key stakeholders. As part of the intergovernmental partnerships, the Minister of Communications and Digital Technologies invited stakeholders for further consultation on the digital technologies cloud and data strategy. NICIS presented the plan on how the cloud and HPC capacity of the state will be increased by cooperation of state information technology agents and NICIS. This strategy also provides cooperation of the state-owned enterprises and CENREN to combine the existing fiber capacity to connect state organs and planning for the hyperscale data centers, which will provide processing and data storage systems. Another important announcement is that we have finalized the appointing of the NICIS governance structure, such as the steering committee. Our minister will be appointing the advisory committee soon. The primary aim of NICIS steering committee as a key component of the overall governance structure is to maximize the effectiveness and efficiency of the implementation of the NICIS as a national facility housed and implemented by the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research. Also, in discussions with prospective research and academic partners in Norway are underway to develop a proposal entitled Healthcare for Management of COVID, like disasters using artificial intelligence. This proposal will combine the efforts of NICIS and the South African research community in an international collaborative research development effort. There are, of course, many other milestones that our NICIS has made, and these are but just some. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a general agreement that a globally competitive ICT and cyber infrastructure sector creates a suitable ecosystem, encourages researchers and scientists to improve their research and compete globally. The provision of modern, well-functioned cyber infrastructure facilitates South African researchers and research institutions is key responsibility of the DSI and must be systematically pursued in close consultation with all the relevant stakeholders. The global response to COVID-19 pandemic starkly demonstrated the value of cyber infrastructure to process large amounts of data, apply data modeling and analytics, and transport the data securely between institutions. However, it was not just about the availability of infrastructure, but also the necessary expertise and skills. The post-COVID-19 economic recovery and construction plan will need to be supported in many different ways by NICIS. Already, the DSI has set up a national policy data observatory to provide scientific evidence-based advice to government. The data center at the CSIR that is embedded in the Center for High Performance Infrastructure has been able to provide the support. Already, Dr. Sithole and Dr. Baloyi have also made reference to the contribution of the cyber infrastructure to the Decadal Plan and the digital economy. And we expect that there will be a lot more effort coming from this infrastructure to contribute to this economic recovery and reconstruction plan in our country. In conclusion, the pandemic demonstrated the centrality of the cyber infrastructure as an enabler with a broader ecosystem of stakeholders from education, private and public sectors. NICIS seamlessly succeeded to provide support and utilization of infrastructures by the users. I wish you a productive conference and look forward to the outcome of your deliberations. With these few words on behalf of the Department of Science and Technology, I wish you well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Seleti. I'm pleased that we could in the end get you on for a very clear connection and presentation. Of course, we are very much appreciative of the DSI being represented at our conference. And as delegates would know, of course, NICIS is fully funded by the DSI. So this is very much a DSI initiative that we are observing at the moment. So thank you very much, Professor Seleti, for that welcome address. We appreciate. So with that, we will now move to the first keynote speaker of the conference. I'm very pleased to have Dr. Marek Michalewicz on the call. Professor Michalewicz is from the University of Warsaw and in Poland, and in the last year or three, we have started to establish a very good collaboration with our Polish colleagues. So, Marek, thank you very much for agreeing to do the opening keynote or keynote one for the conference. Just for the benefit of the attendees, Marek is the director of the Interdisciplinary Center for Mathematical and Computational Modeling, or ICM, at the University of Warsaw. And he's also a visiting professor at the Institute of Advanced Computational Sciences at Stony Brook University in the USA. You can read his bio that is available to all delegates, but I would just like to highlight two things. He played a major role in the creation of the Singapore National Supercomputing Center, which is, of course, a world-class facility in Singapore that even some of our students used in the competition already. And also the other main achievement is the creation of InfiniCortex, a concurrent supercomputer on 4 continents in 7 countries, for which he received 5 awards. So, Marek, I cannot think about a more appropriate title to contribute to the conference and the theme and how we would like to showcase cyber infrastructure usage and needs. So the title of your talk, I see, is also Globally Federated Supercomputing, InfiniCortex, and Other Explorations. So we're really looking forward to your talk. And with that, over to you, Marek.
Thank you very much, Werner. Could you confirm that you can hear me?
Yes, I hear you perfectly well. So
thank you very much. It's a great pleasure. Thank you very much, Werner. Thank you, Happy. Of course, Happy is an old friend. We know each other for years and years, so it's just a continuity of our friendship. I'm really pleased to be in this audience. I welcome everybody to my talk. And the most important thing on this slide is my email address, because for any one of you who got interested in the topics or some of the ideas that I'll be sharing, please do not hesitate, contact me, and I'll be very happy to continue further discussion and deliberations. Here is just a very sort of brief and short overview of what ICM is, Interdisciplinary Center for Mathematical and Computational Modeling. It's been in existence for almost 28 years now. I've been running it for the last 3. So of course I've continued the achievements of my predecessors, and it's a large center in Warsaw, part of the University of Warsaw. I won't be getting into the details of all those sort of tiles that are shown here. You have a link to see all of them in great details, and I encourage you to go and browse and see what's there. A few of the most important things I would like to share today is that the ICM is very deeply involved in modeling of COVID-19 in Poland. And our model is one of the main models used by the Office of Prime Minister, Ministry of Health, and various critical services agencies. It's very fine model based on agent modeling with as many agents as people live in Poland, of the order of 40 million. So there's a very close relation to social demographic data in our country. And it's attached to a very fine geography grid with 1 kilometer resolution. And it turns out that our model is very accurate. Plus, of course, it's based on our own technologies. It scales very nicely. It's parallelized using this parallel computing Java library developed at ICM. We have visualization using our own visualization VisNow package. So it's a very powerful tool. We provide results to the audience. It's available on our website, and it's also we can share it. And by the way, we can also share the model with the countries. So, for example, if anybody or a group in South Africa would be interested in obtaining this underlying technology, I would be very happy to get into discussions on that. It's of course to be open source, and it's not commercial. On the commercial side, we work with International Civil Aviation Authority. We have something like 4 billion records annually to model activity of civil aviation around the world for all planes, of airlines, also landing strips, whatnot, and that's also there. You can see it. Another thing that I will mention, of course, we have Warsaw team, student team that competes alongside with your students, and I really admire your student team for years. When they first won the competition in Germany, I was there at the award ceremony. I was so thrilled. I can tell you that I was so happy for you people for this fantastic achievement, and ever since you are winning year after year. So I congratulate you for that. So of course I would like to do a similar thing, and I've built a student team in Warsaw as well. So they are your student colleagues, and we have various other things. Interesting thing is, again, Meteor. We are with South Africa. Warsaw, Poland ICM is a member of a Unified Model Consortium. Poland is the only country that uses Met Office UK model for modeling weather. We have something like 200 million visits a year to our website with the weather. So apparently we produce the best weather predictions in Poland. And then again, that's another dimension where I think collaboration with South Africa is possible as a member of the same consortium. So here's just about enough about ICM. Now I would like to say a few things that really dovetail to what we've already heard from Happy and from Dr. Baloyi. And I'm very happy. Thank you for this introduction, because I think it's continuation, and I will just show a slightly different angle on what you have already heard in previous short talks. In my mind, this is very personal view. The most important things that are happening in our technology is utility computing, called cloud, convergence of cloud, typical clouds, small scale instances with HPC and cloud HPC, and of course AI, machine learning, big data. Those things have been going on for a few years now. Internet of Things, now things that I think will require incredibly huge computational resources, and all the resources will be building virtual twins. And of course, depending on how ambitious you are, if you want to have virtual twin of the globe, then you might imagine this scale of difficulty and required resource. So that's this kind of problem we could look at. And of course, quantum computing is a big thing nowadays. Here are a few slides showing sort of background, where we are today with compute, with storage, with transport of data. This is the slide from last 2 weeks. It was presented by Eric Strohmeyer at SC21. What I want to, I really love those top 500 talks and the data. You can spend a long time discovering new things all the time. I would like to point out one thing, that in the exascale epoch that we are just approaching, there typically, if you see at the sort of the span between the last in top 500, this yellow line, and the sum of it, it's about 3 orders of magnitude, which is 1,000, which means, and that goes along throughout this measurements, which means that by the time we have exascale, there will be more than 1,000 systems around the world with 1 petaflop. And that's the very important thing, that if you think that how many places you have 1 petaflop system is a pretty powerful computer. So that means there is a proliferation, there's a widespread of extremely high technology all over the place. You have it in South Africa, and hopefully in many other places in Africa. So that's very important take. So you have many systems all over the world. Second thing is there's lots of data. This is commercial data with predictions for over 180 zettabytes in 2025, and I believe we'll reach that level. Zettabyte is 10 to the power 21. It's unimaginably huge number. I doubt many people can even sort of have a conceptual sort of imagine that sort of scale. So and I could hardly find the data for single sort of source of data for research data, because you have separately health data, medical data, astronomical data, and so on. If you add it up together, that will be substantial part, certain part of this, but I believe identical exponential growth. And now you also have optical cables that span the whole globe. Most of them are commercial, but some are fully utilized for research education, and especially in the links across Atlantic from US to Europe. There's now at least 6 or more plus links, each 100 gigs. So we have these arteries, highways for data transfer, but still some regions are not well served. And now I will move to what is happening in Europe. I'm a member of RIAC, Research and Innovation Advisory Group, of this joint undertaking of Euro-HPC. Here is this fragment of the mission, and in the mission you read that one of the major goals of building infrastructure is not just to build a unique separate system, but to federate them and have them hyper-connected. If you ask me what people who wrote this text meant by hyper-connected, I don't know. That hasn't been defined. I don't think so. We haven't had discussions on that, but definitely the words are here. And to show even more strongly, here's the expected outcomes. Again, federated, hyperconnected, European HPC. And the European HPC will be at least three exascale systems, 5 large petascale systems. They've already been delivered. 2 of exascales are being delivered in various countries all over Europe. So it's distributed system of supercomputers. And again, few more to strengthen the idea. Among 7 pillars, connected and federated supercomputers play a very, very important part. And then money comes afterwards. Okay, so there is money also to be gotten for continuing the sort of engaging the sort of projects. So that's a European situation. And now, what's big brewing big data and research network technology? First of all, let's think about data. Data is not something that just appears and stays. The data, you can think of data events in the life of data, and the data is created, transported, manipulated, compressed, uncompressed, anonymized, processed, stored, accessed, stored again, you know, and on and on, sometimes discarded. So that's the death of data. But for each of those events in the life of data, one needs very specific, specialized infrastructure and skills and knowledge and tools and technology. So it's by no means trivial. It's very, very complex. Some of the greatest examples of scientific grade big data come actually from South Africa and Western Australia. So, and that will be square kilometer array. You are very well familiar with that, so I don't need to say much about it. And of course, there will be creation of data in those places, creation from the universe, from observation, and there will be also a huge outstanding problem of data transfer and storage. And as we read here, very recent news from August 16, 2021, POSI center in Australia, which will be one of the main centers serving SKA in Australia, is just buying 130 petabytes of storage. That's a humongous amount of storage, but still not enough. That they will have to buy more, of course, and I believe you are thinking of along similar lines. And by the way, these 2 slides are taken from the talk by Dr. Chen Wu at the Supercomputing Frontiers Conference 2015. Now, globally, first of all, in the US, there was initiated a few years back called Pacific Research Platform to build a research network, optical network, completely separate from Internet 2. And that was successful and led to a new initiative called Global Research Platform. I won't be reading everything. The slides will be delivered to the conference organizer, so anyone interested can see into links and read more. But Global Research Platform unifies all players around the globe who are interested in moving humongous research data especially from very substantial experiments in various continents. And the first workshop took place in September 2019. Just before COVID, so that was perhaps the last conference I went to out of Poland in 2 years' time, but very, very interesting, lots of excellent talks there. And now another thing that is happening from around 2016 is this appearance of a keyword called super facility. And that came from the Department of Energy. Here you have some links to the talks. But the super facility is what we all talk about, and in every talk that we've heard today from Happy and Dr. Jeffrey Baloyi and from the professor, we've heard of integrated facilities, and that's nothing else that integrated facilities in a very sort of rational, well architected way, and that brings experimental facilities, real-time data analysis and management, fast implementation on the newest computers, network and big data science, and of course unified computing facilities, mathematical models, and infrastructure for observation, experimental. So all of this is super facilities. There were few more talks about this, and few more links here. Again, I will leave you the slides with you. Another new trend is even in the CERN, and it turns out that they are rethinking. That's not, again, a few years back at one of the talks. I hear that CERN is rethinking this distributed system of tiering into sort of making less but much bigger sites worldwide, and apparently it will be operationally cheaper and high end, and of course better hardware. So we see those trends being expressed in various things. There is a project called Phoenix in Europe to serve mainly Blue Brain project, and to combine mainly data storage and bring data closer to research computers. So that's a rather new project. But now I will turn topic slightly, and I will talk about something that is very close to what Dr. Jeffrey Baloyi said in different words. We see a lot of activity in AI and supercomputing, but we own and we manage, we operate tremendous computational resources, scientific instruments of discovery, and it would be best if we could also put them to use in the most urgent global issues. And here's the list of global issues. Many of them relate to Africa, of course, and not only Africa, but things like, for example, human rights and population, refugees. The problem of refugees stem from wars and hunger and very unequal distribution of wealth. Of course, people have aspirations to live in the place far from war, in the peaceful countries. Okay, so of course that is a driver that forces them to move. Incidentally, I was also a political refugee once, many years ago, almost 40 years ago exactly. I went from Poland, which was on the communist rule, to Australia. So not that I suffered much, that was incomparable to what people suffer nowadays from places from where they try to leave and for good. But I can understand this sort of trauma they go through. So these are very important issues, and I think it's good that even in your high-level programs you focus on those. And but as an example, it's something that struck me. This is a slide presented about 2 weeks ago by David Kahaner, my old friend, at SC, this Top 500 session. And here's the list of major applications and in AI in China. And what strikes me, it's extremely consumerism driven. If you look at that, it's commercial, it's consumer driven, it's to buy and sell something quickly. And I don't see many, apart of medical imaging and healthcare, lots of things are not of that same caliber of importance, of global importance, but that's just a side note on that. Okay, but in comparison, at the conference that I've been running for many years, and I welcome all of you to attend this next year in July, 8th edition of the conference, Supercomputing Frontiers Europe. For the last 2 years, I invite speakers from Africa, and that's a fantastic program. I'm so happy that the participants, speakers from Africa, can share their experiences, wisdom, and the talks that we get from Africa are anything but this consumer trivialism. As you can see, we had Laura Boykin, who is in Uganda, and she was talking about global food security. Extremely important topic, no question about it. Then we had Ms. Wilhelmina Nekoto from again, Namibia, and she talked about poachers and how to solve that problem in Namibian communities. So important topics. Again, we had Mary Jane Bopape this year from South Africa talking about weather and climate. So again, very important thing. And also Professor Mochegawa, who talked about the support for open science. And open science, although slightly sort of not necessarily in the focus of HPC, extremely important topic. And I added one slide last night, since I've just learned that in November, just about 1 week ago, the UNESCO passed a new resolution with very, very strong support of open science. And if you read here recommendations to member states, they actually not only encourage, they basically mandate member states to engage and reinforce open science. And this way, we can really build more interactions, more global collaborations. And if we can build it between Europe and Africa, South Africa, that would be fantastic. Here's a little bit ad. Please visit our sites. We have very interesting series of seminars. The next one will be in just about 2 weeks' time on human brain atlases. But all the previous events are recorded. So if anyone is interested to listen to the talks on quantum computing, or Stephen Wolfram talking about his recent work and things that are really truly fascinating, please go and visit. And now let me talk about InfiniCortex project, which was a project which I ran from Singapore in the years 2014 and 16. If you notice, it's the super facility, before global research platform. It was sort of early project, but the InfiniCortex was not a grid, not a cloud, not internet, not something like protein folding at home or search for SETI. It was not distributed sort of embarrassingly paracomputing. It was a supercomputing there that encompassed the world. And we've done it 3 times with various level of success. And it rather reminded me of something like a global brain, where all computers on 4 continents, 7 countries were connected with InfiniBand, extended range InfiniBand. And so that was basically a computer with our RDMA. And some of the main sort of topics that were important to figure out and understand is something which we call galaxy of supercomputers, which is the topological concept of how to connect 2 different graphs representing topologies of 2, let's say, supercomputers. So the new union of those 2 systems is the most efficient, and you can send data in the most efficient way. And that was work that I've done with Yufeng Deng from Stony Brook and my student Łukasz Orłowski. Then at that time in 2014, there was this Asia Computing America Challenge thrown by Yves Pop. And in early 2014, and we've done it by November, that was the first link of 100 gigabits per second across Pacific from Singapore to America. Of course, we had InfiniBand from Obsidian Strategic Company, fantastic technology. Unfortunately, the company is not existing anymore. And what was most important in supercomputing are applications, of course. We had this fantastic tool called Desync Plus from Obsidian, and we had various workflows like Adios from Scott Klasky and Oak Ridge and various other contributors to Adios, and various multi-scale models. In 2014, we established connectivity between Singapore, Tokyo, Canberra, Seattle, and it ended up in Georgia Tech in Atlanta, and the endpoint was in New Orleans, and the green link was 100 gig. So that was 2014. This graph shows utilization of bandwidth. InfiniBand allows you to utilize almost 98% bandwidth on the fiber. which is in great contrast with Ethernet of TCP/IP, which with great effort of tuning, we can reach 20% perhaps. So here's this proof of utilization. In 2015, we managed to have a ring around the world. Not only that, but Singapore, on the basis of success in the first year, they signed a deal with Internet2, Singar Internet2. So this link between across Pacific became a permanent link between Singapore academic community and the US. And the same with Europe. This TNCC Singar and link was bought after our first demonstration of InfiniCortex. Again, at that time we got France and Poland and Canada later, and so many partners. What was one of the most spectacular achievements of this project in 2016 was, first of all, introducing InfiniBand routing. That was a new technology, non-existent previously. Obsidian Strategies created routers called crossbows, and we managed to build 7 subnets over 4 continents, and the network spanned the entire globe. And most of it was 100 gigabits per second. Here's the sort of topology of those subnets, as you see in various countries, and lots of partners, about 15 universities, a rather large project, and 7 countries participated. And then another great achievement was creating InfiniCloud. InfiniCloud was something absolutely spectacular. You can imagine that you have, by the press of the button, you press enter, and you create a cloud distributed on 4 continents with the same environment. You just instantiate this, and the cloud was in France, Singapore, Canberra, and at the conference. And here, and not only that we had cloud, but we also managed to run very substantial and meaningful application on that, and that was cancer mutation calling pipeline. I had brilliant co-workers at this project in Canberra. In Canberra there was Jakub Krzeszczyk and Andrew Howard from NCI, fantastic engineers. Mind you, at that time, that was 2016, 14, 15, 16 actually, there was no partitioning of sort of virtualization on InfiniBand. They were the very first people, perhaps, who managed to do it. They went to Israel, talked to Mellanox engineers and developers, and they managed to do this. So, as you see, we had here Gangalia, which showed running of this virtual InfiniCloud over 4 continents. We had molecular dynamics, as you see, in Singapore, Georgia Tech, and at SC, with various staging, computation, helper bonds, and so forth, and then visualization with visit at the conference site. We had this genomics application where we were sending 1.2 terabytes of genomic files. And here's the link. We send them twice across Pacific to Seattle and back to Singapore, and we reduced the time of transfer from 12.5 hours average to 24 minutes. So that was 2014 actually. This demonstration here is a demonstration of segmentation of pathology tissues for medical. The application is from Professor Kurtz from Stony Brook University, and we're using RDO system from Scott Klasky and there's other contributors. So lots of people here. Another very interesting application was this GPI workflow, which serves to simulate nuclear fusion experiments between, let's say, Korea and the United States. This particular application belongs to exascale applications, and I was very happy to collaborate with C.S. Chang, who is the creator of this code, and it worked very, very nicely. So I have to acknowledge participation of a really very large number of people, especially Scott Klasky, who helped us with Adios and brought lots of his collaborators from US to this collaboration. And one other thing is, in 2016, we also ran Arcuda between France and Singapore with 18 GPUs, which were running in France, and the application server was in Singapore. But interesting enough, let's move forward to 2020, and you can see how fast this technology, not necessarily this technology, but similar kind of line of thinking is going, where you have 51,000 GPUs of 8 different kinds employed over entire globe across AWS to run a single workload. I'm not sure whether this is concurrent work, whether that is a kind of embarrassingly parallel where jobs can be split, but extremely impressive. Here's a planetary scale computation on a great number of computers presented in June this year. And a few more things. In Singapore, I ran this center we had 2 data centers about 1.5 kilometers apart. That's the one in this the building on the right at level 17 of this beautiful building. Another one in this matrix building, and so we managed to implement, based on our experimentation, communication of 100 gigabits per second between this National Supercomputer Center and the Genome Institute of Singapore, directly from the storage of sequencers. Here's another interesting graph. It's very busy, but just to briefly say, we sort of implemented this technology to connect 2 campuses between Biopolis and Fusionopolis with almost 1.2 terabits of connectivity using Infinera Cloud Express 1 and using InfiniBand, Mellanox, MetroX, and various other things. So as you see here, it's an extremely sophisticated 2 campuses network. Another interesting thing that came out of that project was that all the campuses of Nanyang Technological University and various other places were connected to NSEC with InfiniBand. And that is a unique solution at that time. I'm not sure how many of those are currently. I've read about one of the American universities that are just implementing this. And so here are my partners in the project: Professor Tantin Wee, Yuefang Deng, Yves Pop, and David Southwell, and my colleagues from ACRC, where I worked at the time. One very important thing I want to say here is that we've done, for 3 years, we've been building global network, and I only had Lim Seng, this gentleman who's bald here on second on the left, and the lady, Tang Gyok Lien. They were my only 2 co-workers who were network engineers. So if someone tells me, no, we can't do it because we don't have people, I say rubbish. If you want to do a big project and very ambitious project, challenging and exciting, and you have excellent people, they were fantastic people. I was so happy to work with them. Of course, the gentlemen behind are equally fantastic. They are mainly application scientists. Dominic Chen in the middle, who is now in Hong Kong, and Liu Xingwu on the left, and Jonathan Low again. So here are partners, lots of partners. I will be reading. That's humongous effort. Some papers that we publish of that awards. And then, of course, we continue from 2017 in Poland. We have this fantastic pioneer network, almost 7,000 kilometers of own fiber belonging to academic community. With those green circles are supercomputing centers in Poland. And we have a dream of connecting Poland with the South Pole, where there are 2 Arctic stations run by Institute of Geophysics, Polish Academy of Science. We haven't done it yet, but that's our motivation to do this long-range thing. We have lots of archaeological sites run by University of Warsaw, which has got a fantastic tradition of archaeology. Among those sites is Machu Picchu, where University of Warsaw is the only academic site institution allowed to dig there. We would like to send IoT data and observational data from there as well. We've been doing demonstration between Warsaw and Australia and CI at SC17. In 2018, we had equipment from Infinera, Cloud Express 2, and we have connected 2 of our data centers. And on a single pair of fibers, we sent 1.2 terabits per second. That is unquestionable at that time, definitely a record, but of course possible because of equipment from Infinera. And we had it after, various giants tested it. We had opportunity to have it for 3 weeks. We tested it. We've done connectivity for something like 900 kilometers, InfiniBand connectivity between Warsaw and Gdańsk in 2019. My student was doing very interesting things. He used ADIOS with RDMA. He also used Parallax, and Parallax is very, very brilliant runtime system developed by Professor Thomas Sterling, who will be talking in today's time. So my student used it for very interesting work. Here, it's a small system, about four servers, 2 or 3 on each side, or maybe 6 together, but very, very good scaling, showing that no matter how far it is for lots of work, you can use InfiniBand and distributed environment and join the resources as it was one. And we've done in 2019 the link between, again, various continents. In 2019, we've used this CAE1 100 gig link through Red Sea with Singapore. That was one of the first demonstration of 100 gig on that particular undersea cable, and also it gives a chance to countries in the Arab Peninsula and maybe even Africa to connect to the cable and use it in connectivity to Europe. I'll skip that. One of my students this year, Jakub Kopecz, started using El Bencho iOS with benchmark. Excellent thing. I recommend anybody. He has got fantastic equipment from HPE, and he managed to have absolutely terrific results of getting up to 160 gigabits per second I/O results for most of the data sets, as you can see here. But as you see, he had 8 NVMEs on a single server and 16 very substantial memory as well. We've connected also with the National Center for Nuclear Research, about 40 kilometers, with Metro X. And here are some tests between Ethernet and using Ohio State University test benchmarks, showing that although the absolute numbers are worse for InfiniBand, however, relative here is close to 90%, whereas on the left-hand side, Ethernet is nowhere near that number. This year, my colleague Jarosław Skomia built a SciNet virtual lab for SC21, fantastic achievement. I congratulate Jarosław. I hear that people from SciNet were very, very happy with his work, so I'm so happy with that. And we are also part of Data Mover Challenge 21. The results will be presented in Singapore in March, I believe, at the conference, and 2 of my colleagues are involved. So here's my team. On the left, Jarosław Skomia, Marcin Semeniuk, Bartosz Drogosiewicz, Karol Niedzielewski, my ex-student, Jakub Kopecz, again a student, Robert Paciorek, Maciej Szpindler, Maciej Cytowski, who is now at POSI. We also have various collaborators in Poznań, Świerk, and Gdańsk, and other places. I thank all of them for all of this. And finally, just 2 words about a choice. I've already picked up instead of doing what Happy is proposing to have a sort of polling of proposals for the name. I called it Academic Computational Cloud of ICM choice. And we spent almost 2 years trying to build it. It's not built yet, but within days we are finishing competitive dialogue, which took us almost 5 months. And we started almost 2 years ago to discuss extremely complex thing. It will have almost all the features that you hear, and you will hear about Nectar. You've heard about OpenStack cloud from Happy. This will be similar. Of course, it's good that we have many different small testbeds. This will be different in the sense that I believe we'll have certain components of technology that will be different. One important feature will be that this cloud will be multi-cloud, completely open to commercial clouds. I would like to create a situation where the user decides whether he wants to go into academic, free services, or he prefers to pay, and it will be integrated. So AWS, I believe, and Azure and others, other public clouds will be as easily available, sort of access through our sort of master portal as other things. And other feature would be that the supplier must, and we do it, and not as a own project. Our input was in designing architecture and features and specifications, but it will be delivered by a commercial company. And then at the moment, there are 2 finalists. So we'll pick one very soon. And they must provide access also to quantum computing, to AI, machine learning, to things like Taxila and other things, quantum chemistry, you name it. Of course, it must be containerized. There must be a lot sort of easy sort of transfer of data from high performance file systems to object storage and so forth. So extremely complex. As technical specification alone, 27 pages long. So within maybe 3-4 months time, I'll be maybe more prepared to say how it went. Maybe on our next meeting, I could share with you, or some other meeting. And with this, I will almost finish, just to say that there are lots of hurdles. And here is just an incomplete list, but of course, scheduling, job placement, organization, cybersecurity, easy access, you name it, lots of difficulties. All of you who are involved in that fully realized how difficult it is. So with this, I'll just say that perhaps InfiniCortex constitutes a new class of computers in Bell's law sense. So I refer to Gordon Bell's law of computer classes. And with this, thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marek, for this comprehensive talk. And as I said in the beginning, it fits so well with the theme of the conference, and I think all the different areas that we want represented in the conference. So thanks for setting the scene. I think this is a good way for everybody to get into the, let's call it, the right frame of mind for the conference. So we really appreciate. We are not going to have questions now, Marek. The timing is a bit tight, but anybody is welcome to make contact with you, of course, if they want to discuss any of this further. So thank you very much, Marek. And then I can just mention to the audience that we are now officially into the next session, which is the Keynote 2 session. We did lose a bit of time in the first session. So the next session, Marek, will be chaired by you. So I'm going to hand over to you. Dr. Jean-Laurent Philippe is available, and you can proceed to chair the proceedings from here. Thank you very much, Marek.
Thank you, Werner. And now I'm sort of changing my role. I welcome Dr. Jean-Laurent Philippe, who is the HPC director for Intel EMEA. And Jean-Laurent looks after Intel EMEA, HPC revenue and manages the team of HPC solutions architects. He works closely with large HPC AI end user customers and with leading OMEs, CSPs and HPC ecosystem partners to define and build the HPC AI solutions, meeting the growing demand for application performance and power efficiencies. As these solutions include not only the processing elements, microprocessors, like the Intel Xeon processor and the X families, but also the interconnect, including Intel networking solutions, the storage memory hierarchy, like Intel Optane portfolio and DAOs, and the Intel tools like compiler, Intel Parallel Studio, OneEpi. Dr. Philippe has been with Intel 27 years and has been in various positions in technical support and technical sales, and he has managed several teams and groups in technical pre-sales. Dr. Philippe holds a PhD from INPG, Grenoble, France, in computer science in automatic parallelization for distributed memory supercomputers and applied mathematics in cryptography. Jean-Laurent Philippe owns 2 patents in Japan on automated parallelization techniques. With this introduction, I welcome our speaker, Dr. Jean-Laurent Philippe.
Thank you, Marek, for this introduction, and thank you, Werner and Dr. Happy, to invite me to the CHPC National Conference 2021. It's really a pleasure and an honor to be here with you. Frankly, I wish that I would be face-to-face with all of you in South Africa, but I think that it was a very wise decision made to keep as much as possible the health and security of people. So I'm looking forward to being there with you all for the next conference next year, and maybe earlier if we can. Today I will be talking about the Intel plans with high-performance computing, what we have, where we are going, and given the topic for this conference on security, I will also talk a little bit about what we do for increasing the security, globally speaking, for the HPC applications, and also our work for increasing security in the cloud. And we know that there are a lot of places where the burst aspect of running into the cloud is facing an important issue with, am I sure that my data are safe? And I'll show you what we do on that. It's a good beginning that is happening now, and you will see what I mean by that. And as usual, Intel plans on keeping increasing the number of features and the level of the features for security in our hardware and beyond. So we are in a very exciting time for high-performance computing. For a long time, decades actually, HPC has been a niche, a kind of exotic technology that was reserved for the few who needed the capabilities for specialized tasks like weather forecast or genomics and so forth. But now we are at the threshold of a new generation of HPC that is scalable and ubiquitous. And as we have the mandate at Intel, we will want it to transform the lives of ordinary people in profound ways on Earth. Today, we are seeing the exponential growth of ubiquitous compute, the proliferation of pervasive connectivity such as 5G, the explosive growth of IoT and cloud-to-edge infrastructure, and of course, the expansion of modern artificial intelligence technology into countless applications. These technologies, our CEO, Pat Gelsinger, calls them the superpowers. Our manager for HPC in the new organization at Intel, Jeff McVeigh, in the supercompute group, calls them superpowers for supercomputing. And they are generating these technologies huge amounts of data that must be gathered, stored, analyzed, and put to use. Each of these superpowers is impressive on their own, but when you put them all together at work, they reinforce and amplify one another. They have multiplicative effects, allowing us to push forward with innovation, discovery, and disruption. They have become major market forces that will fundamentally alter how we experience technology and interact with devices. Intel intends to lead the industry by harnessing these superpowers for our customers' growth and, of course, our own Intel growth. With Intel's unique advantage and the tailwinds of the superpowers driving digital disruption, our strategy to win will be focused on product leadership, where we want to lead and democratize compute with Intel x86 and our range of XPU, and that's where we will need performance. We want all this to be open, where we will be delivering open and secure hardware and software platforms and driving industry-shaping standards that foster collaboration, and using our manufacturing capabilities at scale, we will be creating world-changing technology and at-scale manufacturing with our IDM 2.0 strategy that our CEO exposed in the recent past month. Let's dive into each of these strategic building blocks and how we are executing against them for the near term as well as the future. Let's focus first on product leadership that is measured by performance. x86 is at the core of our DNA at Intel. And today, scalar computing is the workhorse of HPC. The enormous install base and expertise base bring developers and customers the world's largest ecosystem to support their work. In fact, today, 93% of HPC systems are x86 based. To address the challenges of that huge demand for scalar computing, we have introduced earlier this year our third generation Xeon Scalable processor, codename Ice Lake, built on our Sunny Cove microarchitecture, and it sets the standard for scalar HPC today. The third generation architecture enables our customers to solve today's most challenging problems, and we are committed to accelerating performance to unlock their next innovations. Compared to the previous generation of Xeon processor, Cascade Lake, we are seeing a big generational performance leap of about 50%, if I round up 49% to 50, as a geo mean of what you're seeing to the right. with a very large number of critical HPC workloads. So this is really, really a big step forward from the previous generation when you move from Cascade Lake, second generation Xeon processor, to Ice Lake, third generation Xeon processors. The applications span across many different types of applications and domains: manufacturing, finance, energy, life sciences, EDA, weather, etc. And you can see that from a few percent, like 17 for the lowest, up to 70% for the highest. This means that it is worth moving to the new generation of Xeon processor, third generation Ice Lake. And compared with the competition, Ice Lake achieves a plus 32% geo mean across the workloads that matter. Here we are showing on the left and middle parts life science and finance and other life application. And here we are comparing the top SKU of Ice Lake, the 8380 with 40 cores, with the top Milan SKU of AMD, the 7763 64 core. And you can see that top SKU to top SKU, we are with the Ice Lake processor delivering a very, very significantly higher level of performance, and performance per watt even better. And then to the far right, here we are comparing head-to-head a 32-core Ice Lake with a 32-core AMD, and you can see that on this particular benchmark, we are showing a 20+% performance increase. Remember that this is not by luck that it's happening. It's due to the quality of the architecture, the microarchitecture, which is very, very good at Intel. And even potentially more important, all of the ISV ecosystem enabling work that we are doing, so that when we launch a new generation of processors, a new generation of products, then the applications immediately can take advantage of the features that are available in this generation of products. Typically here, we keep on building on AVX 512, for example, which is much effective in HPC applications, and we can see immediately the lead in performance and the lead in performance per watt. I talked a little bit earlier about EDA in the list of applications, and we are seeing several customers deciding to take Ice Lake for their EDA applications. MediaTek is a great example of how our CPUs are being implemented in EDA clusters. There are some others, but they decided not to necessarily communicate about this to keep some confidentiality on what they do and how they do it. The topic of this CHPC 21 National Conference is cyber and cloud, and also for HPC, this is an important piece of aspect that I want to talk about in the next couple of slides, or even more. Cloud is normally something that people take as, or used to take as, a burst solution. More and more, we are seeing that it can be used for running normal applications in a normal environment, and not necessarily just when there is a burst and there's no space left or resources left on the end user's cluster. And we have been working with several cloud service providers, and here AWS announced their EC2 C6i instance on Ice Lake, and they are seeing a 20% increase in performance per core at a 35% lower cost. They see, depending on how they measure, I said 20, but they are claiming 15. They see a lot more memory bandwidth. It really depends on the application, but we and the end users see a significant benefit in going to Ice Lake in the cloud. So we are very excited at Intel to see the adoption of our 3rd generation Xeon Scalable processor for HPC in the cloud. And AWS are not the only one to adopt it. There are some others. But when it comes to security, I'd like to mention what Microsoft Azure has been doing in terms of confidential computing on AKS, Azure Kubernetes Services. They support on this service the Intel SGX software guard extensions in their DCSV2 confidential computing nodes. And these nodes allow end users to run sensitive workloads within a hardware-based trusted execution environment. Hardware-based cannot be tampered with by other software solution. And that's why Intel keeps on putting as much as security in silicon so that it cannot be kind of attacked in software. What is software extension guard, software guard extensions? I'm not going to get into a very big deep dive about it, but I want to explain a little bit that it provides enhanced security protections for application data by creating some secure enclaves. What SGX is bringing is something that did not exist before. There were some solutions for when data is at rest, when data is in transit, and now software guard extensions is providing security for when the data is being used. The Intel SGX extensions offer hardware-based memory encryption that isolate specific application code and data in the memory. It allows user-level code to allocate private regions of memory. They are called the enclaves that you can see here on the left, which are designed to be protected from processes running at higher privilege levels. And you know that privilege might be used to attack. Here, it's not possible. And only Intel SGX offers such a granular level of control and protection. We have seen some customers and end-user customers using SGX when they want to protect data that is sensitive. Typically, I've seen it in genomics, where the patient's information needs to be protected. I've seen it in other health and life science solutions. I've seen it in finance, where also some data is very sensitive. And there are more and more users who say, okay, then that's increasing the level of security for my data and application, and I want that. So as I said, Microsoft Azure has this available in their AKS solution. Okay, so earlier this year, we have introduced the Ice Lake processor. Where are we going from that? We develop currently the next generation of Xeon Scalable processor, codename Sapphire Rapids. We have already provided a lot of information about it, and I will summarize that in a few moments. And Sapphire Rapids will be in production in 2022. For HPC, this is the continuation of the Xeon line of products. We have also shown a lot of information about our XE HPC GPU that is also capable of running very efficiently, not only HPC applications, but AI applications, and it's codenamed Ponte Vecchio. It will also come in production in 2022. But the world of HPC has been facing this issue of bytes per flop for a long time. And in 2022, we will be bringing the HBM high bandwidth memory to the next generation Xeon processors. So that will be helping significantly with the applications that are memory bandwidth bound, yet without compromising the scalar needs of these applications. And in 2023 and beyond, we plan on developing the next generations of products for these swim lanes, CPU with high bandwidth memory, and GPU, as we are used to do on a regular basis for the best of our end users. As I mentioned earlier, the workloads are evolving rapidly. While the scalar workloads continue to define the bulk of HPC, there are a lot of critical and rapidly emerging workloads that require different architectures, such as vector, matrix, and also spatial. As we are here at Intel to help our customers solve their most challenging problems, we have to address this entire range of architectures and make them work seamlessly all together. This is the basis of our XPU strategy: CPU, GPU, XPU. That will create a platform where workload-specific accelerators can seamlessly work with CPUs from both a hardware and a software perspective. And in some instances, we can have the 4 of them, or only one, or a few, or a different type of combinations. That's our vision for the XPU at Intel. And how are we going to get there? Let's talk about the next generation of HPC products that will be coming from Intel: Sapphire Rapids and Ponte Vecchio for the GPU in 2022. Sapphire Rapids take advantage of our new Intel 7 nanometer, or Intel 7, sorry, process, which is the improved Intel 10 nanometer process. Sapphire Rapids brings a lot of new features that will be super helpful for increasing the performance of applications. We have new performance cores, They include advanced matrix extensions that will be very useful and high performance for AI types of workloads. And we also integrate various acceleration engines directly into the silicon. There will be an option for HBM that will be coming also with some SKUs of Sapphire Rapids. And globally speaking, what we can say is that we will have SKUs that will have more than 100 megabytes of shared last level cache, which a lot of people call L3 cache. We will be supporting the next generation of memory, DDR5, and we will be supporting the next generation of Optane persistent memory solutions. We have started with Cascade Lake. Ice Lake has the second generation, the Optane 200, and there will be a new generation with a much higher level of performance with Sapphire Rapids. In terms of I/O, we will be supporting PCIe Gen 5, and over PCIe Gen 5, also supporting the Compute Express Link 1.1 standard that will be useful for more effective I/O. And in terms of technology for manufacturing it, we are moving away from monolithic dies into multi-tile solutions that are connected with EMIB, but that behave exactly as if they were fully monolithic, no change at all. They are logically monolithic. For the HBM capable SKUs, we will be providing up to 64 gigabytes of HBM2E directly on the package, so that it increases very significantly the memory bandwidth, so that it benefits to memory bandwidth bound applications, and in HPC there are a lot. Yet we will still have a very high level of performance with the Xeon cores that will be used because they are the Sapphire Rapids cores. So very seamless to use HBM on this Xeon processor. When it comes to GPUs, Ponte Vecchio will be our first XE HPC-based GPU. It will include up to 128 XE cores. We can talk about more details about this. I won't have time here, but if you need, I can update you on this. So please don't hesitate to contact me. What is in the XE core, because it's pretty exciting. We will have also up to 128 ray tracing units. And this is important because we have listened to our customers. Yes, they want to run HPC applications and AI applications, but when they do simulation, they would love that they don't need to send the data somewhere else in order to be ready to be displayed. So the ray tracing units will be very helpful there. And of course, we will have the highest compute density per socket and per node with this Ponte Vecchio solution. In terms of memory, the cores are equipped with L1 cache. And when you aggregate this total L1 cache over the 2 stacks max that a Ponte Vecchio can consist of, then you get up to 64 megabytes of L1 cache. There is an L2 cache, and on this one, it will go up to 408 megabytes. And the GPU will be equipped with HBM2E which will guarantee the level of bandwidth that is needed to feed the cores. Okay, we have therefore a good Ponte Vecchio GPU, and then it is equipped with up to 8 fully connecting XE links that allow full connected 8 GPU in a node. That is guaranteeing a high level of bandwidth for the connectivity between the GPUs. When the GPUs need to talk to the CPUs and potentially outside the fabric, then they will use the PCIe Gen 5, which is twice as much memory bandwidth as the PCIe Gen 4. So we are increasing again here the I/O capabilities, and therefore that helps building a very scalable and high performance node with a certain number of GPUs, 2, 4, 6, 8, etc. In terms of technology, Ponte Vecchio is using different process nodes, the Intel 7, as well as TSMC N5 and N7. Because there are 47 tiles that are brought together using the Foveros technology and the EMIB to connect them on the base package. And our advanced packaging technologies now allows us to make a multi-die design. And that's not the first platform that we are doing with Foveros and EMIB. So that's why we are very confident that this will be very effective, successful, and very high performance. Ponte Vecchio comes in an OEM form factor that you can put 4 of them on a by-4 subsystem. There is also a possibility potentially to go beyond that. But we believe that the by-4 subsystem will be the most used solution given the density that it allows. Of course, in between the Ponte Vecchios, there are the XE links that are enabling the direct connection between each of them. Since each Ponte Vecchio has up to 8 links, you could decide to have actually 2 XE links to each of their neighbors, increasing again the level of connectivity and communication between the Ponte Vecchios. And then when you look at putting all this at work, then in a 1U platform, you could have a dual socket Sapphire sled and a 4 GPU side by side, liquid cooled, allowing therefore a very, very dense solution. That's what we are enabling, and our partners that I name here, and there are more to come, are already well in progress, making their platform ready for production in 2022. So that's the product leadership based on performance part of my talk. Let's talk now about the second pillar, which is openness. We all know that openness is important, and we know the power of open platforms. Intel has been delivering a lot of new standards that have become from an idea, a first implementation, and then we opened it as a standard. We submitted it as a standard. One that you don't see it, that you don't see here, but to me, that is very important because we use it everywhere, every day, is USB. USB dates back to 1998, and I remember when we started working on it, and now see where it is. It's really ubiquitous. Of course, there are other standards that we have been working on, like PCI Express or CXL, which is the latest one in terms of connectivity. But there are plenty of others that are not showing here and that are now in our day-to-day life. So openness is very, very important. And since GPUs move into the HPC realm, the industry has faced the challenge of separate software stacks for CPU and GPU workloads. This is not good. This is not easy. No one really likes that. This is cumbersome, to say the least. This demands that application developers partition their code for specific hardware configurations, and it requires them to use different languages, libraries, frameworks. The entire stack changes between the GPU and CPU portions of their applications. That's not good. That's why Intel has come up with a proposal called One API, which is an ambitious solution that addresses this problem, as well as the broader challenge of programming for heterogeneous computing environments. And we talked about it actually 2 years ago at Supercomputing 2019. Absolutely, yes, 2019. And we have been expanding it since then. We made it a proposal. We worked with the ecosystem to make it a standard, and we have been offering an implementation of that standard for our GPUs, CPUs, and we are getting it through FPGAs and beyond. One API expands the already huge install base, bringing a unified programming model and libraries and tools that enable customers to build on what they already have. It helps them leverage their existing code bases to create applications that are optimized across a wide range of target processing architectures. It supports various languages. There is just a level 0 hardware abstraction layer that makes it work on Intel CPU, Intel GPUs, and on some FPGAs. And that's not the end. What we have seen is that a lot of the other technology suppliers like AMD, ARM, NVIDIA are also providing, or through their own partners, or through some government projects, they are providing the level 0 hardware abstraction layer that is needed to run a One API developed application on ARM, on NVIDIA GPUs, and beyond. Intel knows that what is important is that the ecosystem is exposed to those new environments so that they can test them, contribute to them, develop with them, make them again ubiquitous as many things. And Intel has announced recently the One API Center of Excellence. Some have been announced in October. A couple of new ones have been announced in November, and we are work in progress, adding more centers of excellence to this program. We had 16 in October, we had 18 in November, and I know that there are a few more in the pipeline. So that's very good for preparing the applications to take advantage of the next products from Intel, typically GPUs, but not with the developers having their hands tied to just one programming environment. Openness is super important. Manufacturing at scale is the other foundation that will help Intel go beyond where we are at the moment. Intel's new IDM 2.0 strategy is a differentiated winning formula that will deliver a new era of innovation, manufacturing, and product leadership to our customers through the powerful combination of three capabilities: our internal network of factories, and we keep on building several; the strategic use of external foundry capacity; and our own Intel Foundry services. And we are building a worldwide foundry business where our customers will be able to take advantage of this in the US, but we've also announced that we will be investing significantly in Europe. It's never been more clear than today that industry-wide success demands these capabilities. More and more silicon needed. We will reliably deliver our customers the supply of components and technologies required to fuel their innovation and growth. This is what our CEO, Pat Gelsinger, has been talking about for the last 9-10 months, and it is being implemented as we speak. How does this all translate into solutions? The Aurora machine that will be installed with HPE at Argonne with the DOE will have over 2 exaflops of DP floating point peak compute. 2 exaflops. How will we achieve that? There will be more than 18,000 next generation Sapphire Rapids processors, and more than 54,000 Ponte Vecchio GPUs. With all this, we are on track for exascale for everyone. And if you remember Raja Koduri's keynote at Supercomputing 2019, he explained that the brand name XE actually stands for exascale for everyone. So that was the small story, because a lot of people ask me, why is it called XE? It means exascale for everyone. As a summary, I would like to just go over rapidly the 3 pieces of information that I have shared with you today, and that sustain the Intel plans for leadership in performance, openness, and scalability for HPC based on the current and next generations of Xeon processors, Ice Lake, Sapphire Rapids, and GPUs Ponte Vecchio. The openness with one API and the new centers of excellence that we have announced. Exascale for Europe with our announcement of the collaboration with Sithole, and the scalability of our manufacturing with IDM 2.0 program. Thank you for your time today. And back to you, Marek.
Thank you very much, Jean-Laurent. Do we have some time for questions, or do we have anybody writing in the chat? Is chat available?
I don't see the chat.
Yeah, I can see it, but I don't see any messages. So, Jean-Laurent, how is it this interaction with CyPearl going? That's very interesting. If you could elaborate on that, please.
Yeah, sure, of course. So we have announced that we are working with, so start my video. Okay, I thought that maybe my video is on.
Yes, it's on.
It's on. Okay, good.
Yeah,
so
yes.
we have signed an agreement with CyPearl where we will be working with them so that we can contribute with them to Exascale in Europe. That means that we will be bringing some of our GPU technologies in addition to their RIA CPU-based solution. That's in the works at the moment. We are starting working with them, and it's too early to say exactly when we will have a solution, but it will be based on either the next generation of GPUs from Intel, or maybe the next one, depending on when the full machine will be ready. That is helping Europe in that case, and more the EU. I need to be more specific. This helps the EU kind of regain a certain level of sovereignty in terms of IP for HPC and beyond, because they plan also on using and develop or using their processors or their technologies to create some processors that would be not only for HPC, but also for some other applications at the edge. So there's a lot happening at the moment. And all this will be also linked to the huge investment that Intel has announced in Europe in the next decade, potentially up to $100 billion worth of factory, wafer fabs, and others. More will be announced probably early 2022. But Intel is rebalancing the foundry network that we have from purely the US and a little bit in China to more in Europe, to have a better global reach and the possibility of serving our customers better.
Right. So I don't see any questions. So maybe I will ask another question, if I may.
Sure.
At such an early stage of, I mean, it's pre-silicon, so it's still early. Are there any consideration for including things like posits or UNAMs, different number representation, different from IEEE format that is advocated or advanced by John Gustafson? I know that John mentioned once that someone from Intel said UNAMs is like setting fire to Pacific Ocean. Will never happen. But I just wonder whether that may change one day.
Who knows what will change? You know, there are new representations of numbers that are happening on a regular basis, depending on the needs for applications. We have seen TF, we have seen BF, we have seen plenty happening. If there is a good reason for end users to adopt a new format, UNAM being one of them, where it changes the capabilities, the performance, the accuracy, or whatever, then of course we will look into that. At the moment, I didn't see any plans to have a support for that type of number representation, let's say. But we are always open, and we always look at what's next, what is being done in research, and what makes sense. So always open to research on this.
Right, right. Well, that's a good time, especially now that with the rise and popularity of AI applications, you have you see this move to 16-bit representation, you know, 32-bit representation, and UNAM allow you to change number of bits for that, and that actually leads directly to incredible energy savings. We always talk about energy savings, never talk about how to realize this through reduction of bit representation for floating points, for real numbers, actually, for numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are seeing, you know, bfloat was one attempt and it's working well. TF is the next one that we are looking at, and that seems to make a stride into AI. However, for HPC and especially simulation, I'm still seeing the complex 128 bits or real 64 bits being the bulk of the use. But as you say, Marek, there's one thing which is evolving in the right direction, which is our end users are looking at places in their algorithms where they can live with a reduced precision.
Yes.
And we are seeing people moving through a workflow in one application from 64-bit to 32-bit float back to 64, so that indeed they save power. And that's a trend that I'm seeing more and more, which is to be praised. Absolutely.
Thank you very much. So since I don't see more questions, I think it's time to thank you, Jean-Laurent. Excellent talk, very, very exciting developments ahead of us. As always, it's never otherwise. So it's fantastic to know that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marek.
We are now we've approached the lunch break for everybody. So thank you very much, and I say goodbye to everybody. Bye-bye.